Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tackling Basketball Podcast. My name is Evan.
I'm Jonathan.
And we got a lot to talk about today. We've been off for a couple weeks. Jonathan went on vacation, the lucky bastard. But, but we are back, and a lot of stuff to talk about here. A lot has happened over the past couple weeks. I personally will say before we get started, I'm not going to talk about the whole Kendrick Perkins situation. A, it happened too long ago, and B, I just don't want to go there.
I should have made him my loser of the week. I may be a little biased, though, as a Nuggets fan.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, we will jump right into it. Got a lot on the docket here. So, different start to us this time around. Top stories, because lots going on. And start right off with probably the most interesting thing in sports right now, the Aaron Rodgers situation. A little while ago, finding out he will be on the Pat McAfee show tomorrow, where who knows, maybe he'll finally tell the world what he's going to do. But
there's no way he announces that live on Pat McAfee show, right?
Dude,
I know he's maybe the biggest NFL player fan of the show, but also that's just so weird. I can't imagine it.
Yeah, but this is also the guy that during the offseason went off and smoked ayahuasca in the jungles of South America, so you never know.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, at this point, it's just getting ridiculous, especially after how much he talked about, I'm not going to hold teams up, and I'm going to make the decision in a timely manner. And at this point, I think regardless of what happens, the Packers don't really care. Obviously, the Packers would prefer to get the draft capital, but his decision is not holding up free agency stuff besides the whole cap situation. With the Jets, on the other hand, the Jets might be in a spot now where they just lost out on any other quarterback they would have wanted because their dreams are set on Aaron Rodgers. Would they have gone after Derek Carr harder? Would they have gone after Jimmy G harder? Would they have gone after other guys if they didn't have this hope and dream of getting Aaron Rodgers? If he retires, the Jets are screwed.
Or would they have just spent their cap more, even if they weren't going to get another quarterback? Would they have maybe just actually gone after free agents harder during this tampering period? Because they've been a little bit quiet so far, trying to hold on to that cap space in case they can get Aaron Rodgers.
Well, and they're making moves like signing Allen Lazard. That is a move to try and get Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers loves Allen Lazard. So it's...
Yeah. I mean... Where did Hackett go there, or is he the Dolphins? I don't remember.
No, Hackett's the OC of the Jets.
Yeah, so...
Well, he's the OC of the Jets.
It seems like they are going all in on it.
Yeah, he's the OC of the Jets. The Jets owner flew the entire coaching staff out to Malibu to meet with Aaron and try to convince him to come over. So it's...
Oh, man.
And for the Packers, I mean, again, it ultimately doesn't matter a ton. Obviously, Packers fans and the Packers would prefer to trade him to get something out of him and immediately clear all that cap space. But...
So, as a Packers fan yourself, do you think that Aaron Rodgers still has it? Would he be able to do anything with the Jets franchise?
I think so. I think I'm not necessarily... There's a lot of people, a lot of analysts that are, if Rodgers goes to the Jets, they're immediately one of the favorites in the AFC. I'm not going to go that far because... But to be fair, the Jets do have a very good defense. The Jets do have a lot of weapons, a lot of weapons. And now they just added Allen Lazard. Breece Hall will be back, which is huge. Their O-line is getting better, and they'll likely address that in the draft. So they have a good team that would be around Aaron. And part of me thinks this last season, a lot of it was he didn't have rapport with his wide receivers. And all those guys kept getting hurt. So as good as Christian Watson is, or as good as Romeo Doubs is, or Allen Lazard, they all missed at least half the season. So it's hard to build rapport when guys keep getting hurt and aren't there. So I think that was a big part of it. O-line consistently got hurt for the Packers. And Rodgers is on the decline, but I still think he can go and lead a team. I think he could take the Jets to the playoffs. I'm not sure they're winning the AFC East. I think they would. I think they could get in as wild card. I'm not going to pick them over the Bills, but
yeah, no. All right. In other news, the New Orleans Saints have recently signed Derek Carr to a 4-year, $150 million contract. Evan, what are your thoughts on that signing?
I mean, I like Derek Carr more than you do. We know that, but this definitely is a Saints treading water move here.
That's where I don't like Derek Carr. Just to interrupt real quick, I think that he is a top 20 quarterback in this league, but barely. And being barely a top 20 quarterback in this league is only detrimental to your team because you're not going to take them to the next level in playoffs, and you're only going to worsen their draft capital. I mean, I guess the Raiders have a pretty decent pick this year, but for the most part, having a mediocre quarterback tends to not allow your team to go as deep into the playoffs as you would hope.
Yeah, for sure. I think I will say the Saints are now 100% my favorite now to win the NFC South, which isn't saying much because it's the Falcons, Panthers, and Buccaneers.
It's nothing.
So the Saints will be making playoffs from here on out,
yeah.
and I guess the good thing for the Saints, they do have a decent amount of weapons, and they will now have consistency at quarterback because Derek Carr is durable. I mean, he's really only had one big injury in his career. He can take some hits. He's smart. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He gets down when he runs out of the pocket. So this will at least make the Saints competitive. I don't see them ever making it to an NFC title game, let alone a Super Bowl. I think they'll likely be first, second round exits from the playoffs for the next 4 years, and then if they keep Derek Carr beyond that, till he retires and they move on to somebody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Because unless, of course, whoever the Panthers take now at the 101. But even then, whoever they take, the Panthers have a long way to go. They're not going to be a playoff contender, really, unless whoever they draft turns out to be the next coming of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Speaking of segues,
there we go.
The Bears have traded the 101 to the Panthers. In exchange, they got the 109 in this year's draft, the 101 in next year's draft, or just their first round pick, but
Yep.
It will be the 101. The 2024 second and 2025 second, I believe, from the Panthers, as well as DJ Moore, who in himself I would say is worth at least a first round pick right now.
Mm-hmm.
Probably right around a first, but Evan, what are your thoughts on that big old trade?
I mean, heck of a haul for the Bears. I saw Bears fans on Twitter saying they never thought they would see the day when the Bears make a good decision, and I mean, and this was it. Choosing to hold on to Justin Fields, regardless of what you think of Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, is the right call. And now you give Justin, DJ Moore, you get a whole bunch of other picks to continue bolstering that defense and that offensive line, and they're essentially now setting up Justin Fields to the kind of the point of no more excuses, like. This next season, we know he can run. He was just over 60% completion percentage this past year. The expectation is going to be that's higher because it's like, dude, you now have DJ Moore. You got, Mooney and then Claypool. Like, you got guys
they
now.
Are.
Yeah.
They are really rounding out their wide receiver depth right now. It's kind of impressive.
And Cole Kmet's a good tight end. So.
Yeah.
So, what about you? What do you... I know your thoughts on it, but...
I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I said that the Bears won the week because they were thinking about trading this pick, and because it meant that they might get a decent haul for it. And I think that they still outperformed my expectations with this trade. I mean, draft capital is always a bonus, and they acquired a lot of capital for what they gave up, especially considering that they probably weren't going to pick a quarterback even if they had kept the pick. It probably would have been an edge rusher, which they won't be able to find that same quality at the 109. but they will be able to round out their roster a little bit further. But then you add on DJ Moore, who is an immediate asset, who is going to bolster your wide receiver core, help out Justin Fields, and I think is just a win all around. And I think that's why they are, once again, my GOAT of the week. It almost feels like cheating to do this again, but, I mean, they made an actually really great decision, stuck to their guns, and got an absolute haul for it. So,
Yep.
But moving right into the next segment with that, it's time to go over our GOAT and Dick of the week. Since I already sort of spoiled my own there, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your GOAT, Evan?
Yeah, my GOAT, and it's the team that you're a fan of in the NFL, and a team, this time, or middle of last football season, I didn't think I'd be talking positively about the Denver Broncos. And obviously, I love the Sean Payton hiring. I think Sean Payton is a phenomenal head coach. That's great for the Broncos. But just, last couple of days in the don't call it tampering period, Broncos have made some fantastic moves. Bolster their offensive line. Chris Manhertz, the tight end they just signed, especially with the injury consistency of Denver Broncos tight ends. I like that move. They're hiring a Vance Joseph, right, for defensive coordinator. I know that happened a little while ago, but I know you may not be the biggest fan of that in the world, but he knows defense. He knows Sean Payton, so I think it'll work out just fine. But Broncos are looking really good, and officially free agency hasn't even started yet. So, so if they can
bolstered their offensive line with one of the better guards in the class and one of the best tackles in the class, which offensive line was maybe one of my biggest concerns going into this thing. So it was huge to take care of that on the first
Mike
day.
McGlinchey and Ben Powers. That's two massive additions. Bringing in Jarrett Stidham for backup quarterback, I like that move because if Russ gets hurt, as much as we all love Brett Rippin,
let it rip.
He's a third string at best.
You're right. I agree. Jared Stidham, I don't put almost any weight on a backup quarterback because if you get to that depth, then you are almost always dead in the water unless your backup quarterback happens to be Jimmy Garoppolo. But yeah, Jared Stidham is the archetypal backup. Just a really smart player who won't lose the game for you.
Yeah.
He won't win it for you, but...
Yeah, and the Broncos are a team capable of making up for their quarterback's deficiencies. So...
For now, I think that our draft capital, or our draft prowess the last few years is going to come back to bite us here really soon. We have not done well finding good talent, especially in the first and second round recently, when we've had those picks. So I think that our defense is sliding a little bit, but hopefully we start to turn that around here.
Yeah. Well, both got our goats out of the way. Who's your dick of the week?
I was really tempted to go with the Panthers for that trade. At the end of the day, though, I still think that finding an incredible quarterback, especially a Bryce Young or a C.J. Stroud, is so valuable.
Yeah.
And while I think that the Bears made an incredible move, I also think that the Panthers, if things work out as they expect, also made an incredible move.
Yeah, that's true.
You would give up anything to have the next Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. So if they find that, there's no reason that they belong in the dick of the week.
Yeah, that's true.
The one that I did put is also almost a technicality. I went with the Las Vegas Raiders, partially because I'm a Broncos fan and I love to see them fail. Partially because I view their quarterback decision as almost a lateral move at best. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, I think is equal to or slightly worse than Derek Carr.
Yep.
And it's kind of almost feels like a strange decision for him to be the person that you would move on and pick up. But at the same time, they're paying him like 15 million a year. It's not a huge contract by any means. So they're going to have some cap savings elsewhere that they can spend. I think that the quarterback, though, is just too important of a position to try to save money in the cap, though. So to make this lateral move or like lateral downward move with maybe the sole intention of saving cap space is a little bit of a flub in my mind. I think that they should have gone out and at least taken a shot at somebody. And it's not too late for that. They can still take a shot in the draft. But I don't think that Jimmy G should be their answer.
Yeah, well, especially when you go from guy of equal talent to Jimmy G and Derek Carr, and Jimmy G is injured all the effing time. So not only are you getting the same talent level, but you're getting a guy who, honestly, over the past 5 NFL seasons has maybe missed the most games out of any player in the NFL. Like, I haven't looked that up, but like it's quite possible. The dude is out constantly.
Man. All right, Evan, what's your dick?
Oh, my dick. As much as I wanted to put Chauncey Billups, head coach for the Blazers, on here, we can get to that later in the event, in the Irrational Fan Rant. I want to talk about the Jets owner, Woody Johnson. And regardless of whether they land Aaron Rodgers or not, this is just such a bold Hail Mary of a move for a 39-year-old quarterback at the tail end of his career. I still think he's solid and can play, but I mean, especially for the Jets, who have literally done this before with Brett Favre.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. You know, it came out today that, you know, Aaron gave them a list of, here's the free agents that I want, and if you acquire all these guys, then I will accept a trade to you. And it's like, why are you bending to his demands? Like, he's 39 years old. Following this season, you have no guarantees that he won't retire on you. And now you're locking Alan Lazard into a 4-year contract. He wants you to go get Odell Beckham Jr., which you'll probably need to lock into a 3 or 4 year contract. He wants you to go get Mercedes Lewis and Randall Cobb. And it's just, there's a certain point where as an owner, as much as you want to win, you got to also consider how well your team is going to be set up in a few years. Because this is a very young Jets team. And all of a sudden you're going to saddle them with a 39-year-old quarterback who might be around for a year or two. And then after a year or two, you're going to have all these guys, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, that offensive line, Breece Hall, all in their prime with no quarterback to lead them. So I think this is just way too big of a gamble for an owner, especially an owner in a market like New York.
Yeah. I mean, I highly agree with you. The Jets are making an incredibly short-sighted decision if it is true that they are going all in for Aaron Rodgers, because he will not last very long. And I don't think they're ready yet either. I don't think their team is complete enough around him at this point to be able to push for the Super Bowl. I mean, they should probably make playoffs with Aaron, but they're going to have to make a lot of really wise moves in both the free agency and the draft in order to be able to have a chance to compete for the Super Bowl even with Aaron Rodgers. So
yeah, absolutely. Like, there's no way, even with Aaron, I'm not putting them over the Bills. I'm not even sure, honestly, I'd put them over the Dolphins. So
yeah,
it seems like an interesting move. If I were the Jets, I would have tried to trade up in the draft, snag a quarterback, or gone out and tried to get another quarterback on the market. I'm shocked they didn't offer 2 firsts for Lamar Jackson. Like, if they acquired Lamar, yeah, I would probably pick the Jets in that division. Quite possibly, honestly, because the Bills are just inconsistent, and the Dolphins are the Dolphins. But instead, they're going after 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers instead of a 25-year-old former MVP.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, granted, Aaron Rodgers is a back-to-back MVP recently.
Yes.
But at the same time, Lamar Jackson is just way younger and way more set up for the future of their franchise. I think they would have been really wise to pursue him instead.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of teams would have been, like the Falcons as well. But
Yeah, the whole Lamar Jackson situation is confusing to me.
yeah, it's confounding a bit. Um,
Speaking of the NFL draft and all that, let's focus on that. I mean, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moves being made. I'm sure on draft day a lot more trades will be made. But what are your hot takes for what we have to see coming up here in the 2023 NFL draft?
yeah, I tried to be hot with a lot of these, but honestly, I'm not sure how many of them really are. I think that a couple of them, my points are just refutations of current trends in media that I'm hearing, more than it is an actual hot take. But we'll see what you think.
Mm.
We'll start with, I think that Bryce Young is going to be the pick at 101. There's been a little bit of a buzz recently about Anthony Richardson sliding up there, or maybe a CJ Stroud, but I don't really see either of those prospects being what at least the Panthers view as their ideal fit. We may get into a little bit later who I think actually is the best quarterback or the best player in this draft, but all of that aside, I think Bryce Young is the one who's going 101.
I'd probably agree with that. Bryce Young, he throws a beautiful ball and has got a great accurate arm. He's very smart. Only thing that would hold me up is if I was a GM would be size. And I know supposedly in the NFL we have quote unquote moved past that, but he's
Have we?
He's 5'10". He's 200 pounds sopping wet. I mean, there's an argument to be made that this dude takes one hit from an Aaron Donald or a Khalil Mack or a Joey Bosa that he might die on the field.
You say we've moved past size, though, and here's why I almost think Bryce Young 101 is a bold take, is the three people in recent memory that I can say have had the biggest size complaints are Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and
Baker?
Yeah, Baker Mayfield. And look at these three quarterbacks this last season. Baker Mayfield is barely holding on to a backup role in the league. Is he even still in the league?
He
is.
He's not signed right now. I'm guessing the Rams will probably re-sign him, I would suspect,
right,
or the Buccaneers.
And then you have Kyler and Russell Wilson, who combined for 10 wins last year, I think.
Yeah.
So it's been a really, really rough stretch for guys that we have complained about their size.
Mm-hmm.
So for Bryce Young to have that same complaint and then to compare him against these other characters, I think has strong potential to throw him out of the 101 spot. But I think that the Panthers will still go for him at that position, regardless of size.
Yeah, and you don't trade up. You don't make that trade unless you really love somebody. And like we said, we can both talk later about who we think is truly the best quarterback in the draft. But we know a lot of people love Bryce Young, think he's a generational talent. And so of all the quarterbacks, it probably makes the most sense to try and trade up to the 101 to grab him.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a hot pepper take for the draft? I don't want to go all four in a row for this.
I will go. I see your next one you have listed here. I will go kind of the opposite. We can kind of just spitball off of it. I think we will see 4 quarterbacks in the top 5.
Oh my!
I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, like, Panthers are obviously taking a quarterback. You don't make that trade unless you're taking a quarterback. Texans need a quarterback, and the Texans GM has more or less said we'll take whoever's left after the 101 goes.
Yeah.
At 4, the Indianapolis Colts need a quarterback. I think Jim Irsay is sick and tired of the old, dead-to-water, outdated quarterbacks, and they're going to go young. They also have heard that they love Anthony Richardson, and there's a very good chance he's available there. at 4.
Wow.
And then Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll came out and said that, hey, we haven't had a top 10 pick since, I think, like 2011 or something like that. And he said, he's like, when you're up in this place and you don't have a franchise quarterback, you can't miss your opportunity. So there's a very good chance that the Seahawks go grab him. And then on top of that, who knows what the Cardinals will do. The Cardinals, while they don't necessarily need a quarterback...
There's no way they move on, right?
No.
I mean, I know I just complained about Kyler, but...
No.
I cannot imagine them moving on.
I was saying that as they're not going to take a quarterback, so they may allow, like, the Falcons or somebody else to trade up into that 3 spot to jump the Colts to grab a quarterback. And I know there's a bit of a drop-off between Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, to then Anthony Richardson and Will Levis in terms of college success. But I think we're hitting a point now where there's a lot of desperate teams out there. And I think teams also saw, I mean, recently in history, you've had people like Josh Allen, who coming out of college, everybody thought of as a project quarterback. And I think that's rubbing off on a lot of people of like, shit, if the Bills can do it, take a super physically gifted guy and turn him into an MVP candidate. Why can't we?
Josh Allen is the reason that Trey Lance got picked 103.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that necessarily holds up well enough for an Anthony Richardson to go 1-0 top 5, but yeah, he definitely has left an impact on the draft.
It just comes down to how desperate some of those teams are feeling. We know Panthers and Texans are taking a quarterback. It will likely be Bryce Young and then C.J. Stroud, more than likely. But then Richardson and Levis, we'll see how those 3, 4, 5 teams drafting, if they really just feel like we got to go out and get a QB. And if they do, then they'll risk it. So it'll be interesting. And I think that I think they are desperate.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And honestly, my point bouncing off of that might be a little bit driven by personal bias because I said that Anthony Richardson will not be drafted in the top 10. And part of that is because I don't think that he or Will Levis should be drafted in the top 10. Especially if you look at like last year's draft with the quarterbacks all falling incredibly far. Kenny Pickett, the only first-round quarterback. No one else taken until the middle of the 3rd. One of the top prospects, one who was considered to be the 101 going into that college season, was taken not until the 4th round, I believe, in Sam Howell. And you've just seen this like huge emphasis, I think last year specifically, in I know quarterback is the most important position, but it's also the most important position to get right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you overspend on draft capital thinking that, oh shit, we don't have a quarterback, we just need a pin to throw at the wall, you're going to wind up disappointed and without anything to show for that high pick. So in my opinion, Anthony Richardson has been incredibly elevated by his combine results and by the fantasy football community, all just touting his physical prowess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that both of the combine and the fantasy football community are much more ignored by GMs than most people realize.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's a good chance that he falls outside of the top 10, and I also kind of think he definitely should.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe we'll have to get a side bet going on this to see what happens. But it's
for sure.
I don't disagree with the fact that him and Will Levis shouldn't be top 10 picks. But yeah, we'll see. Last year could definitely be kind of a new trend in the NFL of people are only going to take the Trevor Lawrences and Joe Burrows of the world as top tier picks.
That'd be so interesting.
From here on out.
I would love that. We'll see if it happens, but that would be awesome.
Well, aside from that hot take, I think of any others, but it seems like you got two more.
Yeah, I've got a couple more. So I think that Bijan will be the earliest running back taken since Saquon Barkley. I closed that tab. I believe that Saquon Barkley was taken 102, and before him or after him, the earliest running back taken was like the 21st overall pick, which I think is just a no-brainer for Bijan. It's sort of a bold take in that it's been a while since it's happened, but also he is one of the most clearly great running back prospects that we've seen in a while, and I think that teams are starting to sort of figure out that position a little bit more as well. Figure out not only its value in an offense, but also how you maintain the health of that position. You don't have it be a one-man show like Christian McCaffrey has been for most of his career. You pair him with a solid number 2 running back, and now your offense is deadly.
Yeah.
So I think that Bijan will go before the 21st overall pick and also after the first overall pick, which satisfies my objection.
That's fair. I mean, just looking at the list of teams there, up to 21, there's a few that could go ahead and decide. I mean, Philadelphia Eagles, if they're wanting to make a Super Bowl run next year, I mean, they've pretty much kept their team together. They could decide to upgrade at running back because on offense, that's really the only place they're deficient in.
Yeah.
Houston Texans at 12 could decide. I think that would be a dumb move for the Texans, but I mean, they could full send it. New York Jets could do it and pair Bijan with Breece Hall, which would be scary.
Yeah. Man, I don't think the New York Jets should, though.
No, I don't think they should.
I mean, granted, they have 2 running backs coming off of injury, but I love both of those running backs. Michael Carter, vastly underrated. And then, of course, Breece Hall is just incredible when healthy. We'll see how well he recovers, but yeah. I think that the Jets are set up very well at the position and would be a little bit foolish to waste such a high draft pick on it.
Yeah, and if push comes to shove, they could always re-sign like a James Robinson who they had on their roster if they think that Breece is going to take a little while to get back up to speed.
Yeah, that's true. My last take for the draft is that I think that 7 wide receivers will be taken in the first round. This has only ever happened one time in the history of the NFL, and that was in 2004, the draft that had Larry Fitzgerald. And I just think that wide receivers' values or perceived values by NFL teams is through the roof right now. Half of the teams in the league think that they are worth first-round picks because then you get them on decent cap numbers and you get a guy that can contribute really well to your roster. And the other half of the league thinks that they are worth $25 million a year. So I think that really comes to a head this year, especially because if you look at the top wide receivers in free agency right now, it's a pretty meager list.
I mean,
pretty much everybody.
There's a chance that the Jets just got one of the best ones in Allen Lazard. And saying that Allen Lazard is the top wide receiver free agent is, no offense to Allen, but he's not phenomenal.
He's not. And he's been I've not seen him left off of a top 5 free agent wide receiver list this offseason.
Yeah.
It is just a really meager list. Maybe the only eye-popping name is Odell, and he hasn't really played at all these last couple of years. So I think that the lacking free agency market is going to really push the value of this already really decent wide receiver class just through the roof. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if 8 were taken in the first round, but 7 is a little bit of a safer bet.
No, I like it. I don't really have a counter argument to go against that.
All right. It's time to move on to our next segment. We are in this segment we are going to be scouting players for the upcoming draft. We each chose a skill position player that were outside of the top 10 ish. I went with top 9 guy. But later prospects at their position. And Evan, why don't you go ahead and get us kicked off with your wide receiver?
Yeah, and I embraced the down far on the list a little bit more than you did, but to be fair,
You definitely did.
I did wide receiver. You did a position, which I won't spoil it yet here. You did a position where there's a much steeper fall off from 1, 2, 3 to then everybody else below. So to give you a little bit of credit there.
Yeah.
But I went and scouted Tyler Scott, wide receiver out of Cincinnati. And I was just using NFL Draft Buzz, but I went and looked at a few other people's boards and lists for wide receiver rankings, and kind of consensus is he's late teens. The website I'm looking at has him at 18, so pretty far down on the list. But I think he could be a serious sleeper candidate for this year. I know 18 isn't quite getting into sleeper range yet. It's close, but not quite there. But he is very quick. He ran a 4.4 for the 40 at the combine.
Wow. Yeah.
Very agile. If you read his scouting reports, everybody says he's very twitchy. He runs great routes. Most people also have him slated to be a kick returner in his first few seasons because he's just got great speed. He's got great field vision. Watching tape on him, he really did just have great downfield vision. There were plenty of plays where, for most wide receivers after the catch, they would have been stopped right where they were or gotten a couple of yards after catch. But he has that capability to see the field, see where the defenders are, make people miss, and help his quarterback out quite a lot. And that Cincy this past year, what was it? Yeah, he averaged 16.4 yards per catch, which is pretty damn good. So I think he's a guy, obviously won't go in the first round, or at least, well, who knows? Maybe the Patriots take him. But likely won't go in the first round, maybe not even in the second, but is a guy that, for the right team, could be a massive asset for them. And who knows, maybe in fantasy football, though with my fantasy football prowess, I may not be the best person to listen to. Maybe in fantasy football, he's a guy to look at too in your second or third round of your dynasty draft leagues.
Yeah, cool. I did a little bit of scouting on Tyler Scott, seen him on our list. And honestly, I'm a guy that I love scouting wide receivers because I know, based on their archetype, whether or not I'm good at scouting them. And Tyler Scott has an archetype that I'm horrible at scouting. He is a burner, so he's always open downfield without a defender on him when you watch him on film. And I'm not very good at identifying whether those prospects are good or not. But I might have to take your advice there, seeing if he's available in the second or third round of our draft.
Yeah. That's what Jonathan loves to do.
Yeah.
He loves to steal from me.
Oh, yeah. All the time. But my guy that I went with is a running back. And I'm going to preface this with, I actually don't know if I would put him much higher in the draft than where a lot of outlets have placed him, except that I place him much higher relative to other running backs.
Gotcha.
I think that overall it is honestly a fairly underwhelming running back class. You have Bijan Robertson, which is an incredible prospect. Maybe the best prospect we've seen since, I really strongly believed in JT, but I would say best since JT, except that he should get drafted higher than he did.
Yeah.
My guy is Kendre Miller out of TCU. He is the 9th ranked running back by ESPN. And I think that he has all of the qualities that I look for in a good running back. I don't think that he will shock the league in any sense of the word, but I think that he will be a starting caliber player in this league, and that he will get consistent yards and just consistent play. I think that he has a lot of strengths that I look for, especially in players who are not just super obvious stud athletes. One of which is just he's a really quick decision maker. He's really smart. You watch every single play, and I focus a lot on how they act in the backfield when I'm scouting running backs. And he just gets the ball, goes straight to the hole. He doesn't wait for the play to develop unless it's designed for him to do so. Like you see a couple of plays where they pull a tackle, pull a guard, and you're supposed to like sort of follow that tackle or guard downfield, and he is patient enough to handle that situation. But if it's a design just hit the hole, he is going to quickly identify the hole, hit it hard, and just guarantee no tackle for loss. He'll get you 2+ yards on every play. And I think for a mediocre running back in the league, that is exactly how you earn your touches. You want to be a guy who will not lose yards for your team and who will always just make the correct quick decision. He runs a little bit too far upright. He's not super quick on his cuts, but he just hits the hole really hard and has really strong legs. And I think that holds a huge advantage over other guys. Like I look at Zach Charbonnet, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is the 3rd ranked running back in this draft by ESPN. And you see a lot of the reasons why he's ranked 3rd. He has really quick cuts. He is really strong and is able to break some tackles, is good in the open field. But at the same time, I watched some really weird and concerning quirks with him. Like, I think over half of the highlights that I saw of him, he gets the ball on the handoff and he immediately jump cuts with no one anywhere near him. He just he sees where he thinks he wants to go and he moves too much laterally to accomplish it. Which in the NFL, that's just going to bite him. And I think that he, as a result, might see less touches even as a much more highly regarded prospect. I think that he'll just struggle against these NFL defensive linemen in order to hit the hole hard enough and with enough confidence. So I don't know necessarily if I would place Kendre Miller above the 3rd round, like early 3rd round in this draft, which is a little higher than everyone else has projected. I don't know if I would put him much higher than that, but at the same time, I think he has potential to be the 3rd, maybe, but probably not, maybe 2nd best running back in this draft.
Okay. So you'd be happy with your Broncos taking him there at 67 or 68, their first picks of the draft?
No, the Broncos don't need a running back. They've already signed a couple in free agency, and they've already gotten. They have Latavius Murray, and he might be a free agent. I hope they re-sign him. But Javonte Williams, I don't think that they need a guy like Kendre right now. But yeah, I think that he will do well in the NFL.
Gotcha. Sweet. Well, always remember, take all of our fantasy advice with a grain of salt. So Jonathan is usually better than I am when it comes to this sort of thing.
Just don't spend money on our takes. That's like my one thing.
Yes.
I like to think that I'm good at this, but I also don't want to cost anyone money. So
Absolutely. I don't want to be the reason why you're homeless, or I don't need you to be cursing my name as you're drifting off into sleep at night. So.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, we'll segue into our weekly 100 units, 10,001 betting segment. As per usual, our 100 units one is have 100 units over the course of the season, which matches up with our yearly betting budgets. Jonathan and I go out and pick something to bet on. We tell you what that is and then how many units we spent on it. And then 10,001 is exactly what it sounds. Find a bet where the odds are plus 10,000 or higher, put some money down on it, and inevitably lose it because that's why the odds are so high. So, John,
Yeah, for sure. Evan, why don't you go ahead and go first?
yeah. So I've been on a little bit of a dry spell here recently when it comes to betting. So I'm taking a step back from my usual parlays, and I'm just going a nice, simple 100 units bet this week of Celtics over Timberwolves money line at minus 196, and I'm putting 1 unit down on that. And
All right.
if it loses, I really don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a high payout, but at the same time, it is a fairly sure one, I think.
Yes.
So hopefully you're able to get an extra half a unit on your docket with that one.
Yes.
I'm going to go with a pick that I would have put in a same game parlay for our 10,001 bet, except that you sort of claimed it a little bit before me. And that is the Portland Trail Blazers money line over the New York Knicks. That is plus 112. I'm putting a single unit on that, and I just think that the Blazers are very well positioned to win this game just based on matchups, from what I'm seeing, and also very motivated to win this game with the play-in tournament on the line. So I think that's a fairly good odds for this game. I always search out plus odds, and I think that was my favorite plus odds game of the night. So
Gotcha. I like it. Hopefully Dame plays.
hopefully Dame plays.
All right. So over to our 10,000 to 1. I just went through on FanDuel and clicked the create a parlay button and selected some ones that I thought, hey, maybe this will happen. I realized after I made the bet, it just so happened that they were all a part of the Blazers next game. But I picked Yusuf Nurkic to drop 20 plus points, Josh Hart to drop 15 plus points, Julius Randle to have 6 plus assists, and RJ Barrett to have 8 plus rebounds. That comes out to being plus 47,269, and I put a quarter of a unit down on it.
That's so many units, man.
I know.
Although it's still enough that if you hit, you're taking the lead.
Oh,
these 10,001 bets are just so massive that it doesn't even matter how much you put down.
No, I mean really at the end of the year here, the person that wins this for 2023 between us is just going to be the one that hits more of the 10,000 to 1 bets is all it's going to be.
If any of us hit.
Yeah, if at all.
Yeah. For my 10,000 to 1, I'm putting the Warriors to win by at least 11 points over the Clippers tomorrow, after tying in the first half. So it has to be a tied score at the end of the half, and then the Warriors have to win by at least 11. And the odds on that are plus 13,739. Again, motivated team in the Warriors, fighting for their playoff lives right now against a team that honestly I don't fully believe in the Clippers, especially as we get later in the season where other teams are putting more pressure not only on their regular season finishes but later on in the playoffs. So I think it's a shot in the dark to have it go tie then win by 11. But I think the Warriors should win it at least. So we'll see if I can hit my massive odds there. All right. I think that's all that we have for today, unless we want to ad-lib something.
No, I will quickly just say, Portland Trail Blazers, please fire Chauncey Billups at the end of the season. That's pretty much all I got at this point.
All right, perfect. Well, good night, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode. And have a great night.
Good night, everyone.